Everybody ready to get started? It's 6:30. All right, welcome everybody to the Board of School Trustees Business Meeting, July 8th, 2025. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, thank you. All right, we have a presentation, CMS Challenge Day, Mr. Todd Fuller. All right.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Fuller, and I'm the social worker at CMS at the middle school. I just wanted to come here today to announce that we are partnering up again with Reed Community Health to bring Challenge Day back into the corporation. So we are very lucky to be able to continue that partnership. This will be my 6th year at the school, so my 5th year of hosting Challenge Day. So we're doing it Wednesday, August 27th and Thursday, August 28th. I brought some flyers for you guys to have and to hand out. We're looking for volunteers. I will say for volunteers, it is an all-day long commitment. It's a very immersive. You're in a room with our 8th graders for the whole entire day. You get your own little family. It's a super high charge emotional day, and we've had some board members who've got to participate in our challenge days in the previous years. So I'm super excited to be able to bring this back into our corporation and our community.
It is such a wonderful event. I hope that any of you who haven't participated, look at the calendars. Yes. Because it's like nothing else you would have ever participated in your life.
I participated in it from the get-go, and I was curious to see what it was like, and I'm just so grateful that Reed is sponsoring it, because middle school is such a vulnerable age of kids, and the message of Challenge Day is something that they need desperately. And I think it does make a difference with them, a whole lot of difference. And we kind of stick with our little families, because we got at the end we get a little card, and we can send an encouragement to one of the kids that was in our little family throughout the school year. And the kids that got them, wow, this was cool. They really enjoyed it. So it's a fantastic, but it's from 8 to 3:30.
It is, yeah. And we've had volunteers come back into our building like after Challenge Day, like during our lunchtime, and I'll never forget it. When the kids walked by and they're like, "Oh my God, hey, how are you?" And they struck up a conversation, and they only met them for a whole day, but that bond was created within that time frame. So that was really cool to see. So I encourage anybody that's able to volunteer to please volunteer. I'll give you guys some flyers. If you know anybody that wants to volunteer, my contact information's on here. It's my school email. I have it on my phone, so I get it all summer long, so I get notifications. So
I agree. It was one of the most emotional things I've ever been through. Matter of fact, there was parts that brought me to tears, sharing with these kids, and so it was an awesome day.
took me, what, 4 years? 4 years to get you to do it, Chris? Was that
Well,
right?
you know,
Right?
a little coaxing.
Yes.
Also, so much work you do, Rebecca.
Oh, it was.
You know, when you're at Challenge Day, if anybody tries to find you, I mean, you're constantly in demand. And it's not easy to have all the 8th graders in one room at one time. And I don't know how you and Mr. Todd manage, like, teachers, you know, where teachers are and all that stuff, but it's, thank you for doing this for us.
I'm sure. I will add, I had one that was in Walmart probably 2 months after that, and I had one of my, so come up behind me and hugged me on that, and I said that was, first I didn't even get away, but it was emotional. It was great.
It means a lot.
My Walmart buddy.
Yeah, thank you for all your work. We do appreciate it. Mr. Todd as well, and your team.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. I'll pass these around for you guys. If you need more, just let me know, but appreciate you guys letting me come to talk tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you can do it, because it's just, it's absolutely fantastic.
All right, Gibraltar Design, Chris.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I also have Victor and Mike with me today. This is a carryover from previous information from last month, and so we want to bring that forward today. Some additional, I guess, research and estimating that we did based on conversations from the June meeting that we wanted to bring forward as well. And then we have a construction update. There is some older information that I'll just go through. If there's anyone that's new in the audience that would like me to go through this, I can, but we have presented this at previous meetings. But our original goal of bringing this forward was that long-range planning objectives. We know that as districts are going to be maneuvering through, recent legislation updates and things, we want to make sure that you're not just set up for now, but you're set up for the foreseeable future with some of those items that need to be addressed. Historical timelines on here, we remember, started our relationship in June of 2022 and started this process, and we're continuing, I think, very strategically in a very smart way, addressing things as we go through little bit by little bit, but also towards that long-term goal. Where we're at in this planning phase right now is, as you know, we started the conversation it was in May, and then revisited in June to have a conversation about teeing up what we believe to be the next project for consideration at Eastview. When we presented at that time, we wanted to come back because there was something that during that meeting, thank you again for letting me join virtually, about looking at a different location at Eastview. And we went through that process, and we'll bring that forward to today. If we're staying on track with making sure we're bringing you information and make some timely decisions, we are on track to return August 5th for that project hearing 1, and then project hearing 2 again being on August 12th. If we feel like you have enough information, to move forward at this time. So, I want to provide a construction update at the high school for the pool, and so as I bring Mike up to kind of explain a little bit more about it, I want to kind of set the stage. When we do our feasibility study and we do our comprehensive study of all of your buildings, we go up to a certain point. We will not cut out your wall because we don't want it to cost you money. We find a 4-inch pipe. We don't cut through the 4-inch pipe to find out that there's a 2-inch pipe inside that 4-inch pipe that's serving. So same thing with the pool. When we assessed the pool, obviously we understood some of the things from your maintenance team what was not working, but we also brought in our expertise of what we do with pools. We have pool experts that actually went through the study with us on that journey, but we also don't drain the pool. And so when you don't drain the pool, there's certain things that you don't see until the pool is drained. I'm here to tell you the pool is drained. So now we have some people that have been inside the pool and on the liner. And so we have some historical perspective that Mike is going to be able to explain to us. But in the last 2 weeks, we've had some meeting with Skillman contractors, with WTI, which is our pool consultant who just does pools across the United States, and been talking through, now that it is drained, we had an original plan for your pool, but we wanted to bring forward a proposition of, now that it is drained, do you want a short term, do you want a long term on the liner? So I'm going to turn it over to Mike to explain a little bit more. I barely even know how to swim. It's like survival swim, but Mike knows a lot more about pools than I do. So.
Chris, for being a former elementary school principal, you're doing quite well. About pools.
That's right.
Thanks. Just a quick background on the pool and what we've learned during recent construction. I understand the new gutter has been put in place. When they did that, they had to remove the old gutter system and part of the concrete wall underneath it to put the new gutter in. During that, we learned a few things that we didn't know before. When we first assessed the pool, WTI, or Water Technology Institute, is our pool consultant, and they've designed probably 1,000 pools across the world, mostly in the United States. We had every reason to believe that the finish in that pool was a plaster finish or a cementitious finish, which requires a certain thickness. Well, through the demolition of that gutter and wall, we found out that's not what the finish is. It's a very thin fiberglass resin finish liner that they put in the pool when they built the pool. It's more of a finish you might find in a residential pool construction. It's not something you're going to see in a commercial pool. So the pool, because there's no thickness, it's basically 1/16 of an inch thick. There's not a whole lot of play for the exact length of that pool, right? Pools required, you cannot be less than 75 feet long. You can be a little bit more, but you cannot be a fraction of an inch less. Right now, we understand that pool, when it was built, did not meet that requirement. But when we remove the tile markers on the end of the pool that has a thickness to it, we think we might be able to get closer to that certified lead pool. The bottom line is the pool will not be any shorter than what it is currently in the existing pool. We're going to go and try to meet that. So we don't really want to get into additional costs of grinding concrete, for example, and do that. That could be thousands of dollars. You still will have a competition pool, and if for whatever reason you decide to have it certified, if you had a national record broken in that pool, USA Swimming might send somebody over to measure it. And the fact that if you did have a swimmer that set a national record, that would ever happen. So slim to none chance on that. So we believe that the best solution for the new finish in the pool is to come back with a PVC membrane liner. It comes with a 10-year or 15-year warranty. In this case, we're looking at a 10-year warranty, and it has a life expectancy of 15 to 20 years. It could be that long because it's indoor. You see a lot of PVC liners in outdoor pools where they're subject to UV, and it's a little bit more harsh of an environment. But as an indoor liner, you should see that liner or that membrane lasting for many years to come. It also is a very attractive finish to it. It will seal any cracks or potential leaks that might be in the pool that could be uncovered if you were to remove the fiberglass. So once you start taking finishes off like that, you could expose leaks. So we're going to cover that fiberglass with a membrane liner and remove the fiberglass and ceramic tile on the end walls to help with the distance of the pool. Right now, we are looking at Skillman's talking to the contractors, and we're going to get some cost proposal of that. It could be anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000, $80,000. We don't know yet. We're going to get those cost proposals in. But we do believe that's the most feasible solution for the Connersville High School pool compared to like a quartz aggregate finish, which was your alternate. That requires a thickness. It's better than coming back with a fiberglass lining that comparable to what you have now. You could put what they call a gel coat system over the fiberglass, but that's even more money. So we think the best solution is to come back with a PVC membrane for the pool, and it will be better than what the existing pool was. Any questions on that?
Yeah, so you said if you take those end tiles out, you may gain a little bit.
Very possible, because you've got ceramic tile that are markers.
Right.
If you know what I'm talking about. There could be a mastic or a grout behind that. We believe there is. So there's some thicknesses. The distance between gutters, which you have now, is fine.
Okay.
The existing gutter was fine. It's 75 feet 1. That met. Where the problem was, once we got down in below the water surface, the wall was proud of the gutter, which technically, where the touch pads are, it made the course a little bit shorter.
And as I think Jeremy shared with us, difference in lanes, that one lane is slightly different than the other.
Measurements, when you do measurements for a pool, your best measurements are done by a surveyor. They have the right equipment. Some of the measurements that we've seen so far have been done by a handheld laser. Those are pretty accurate, but they're not as accurate as a survey done. So if they ever were to certify the pool, a survey would have to actually be done of the pool, not just somebody going out there with a laser measuring it.
So more information to come from Skillman. We've had to provide information for them to get some pricing. We wanted to bring this forward because you can see the base bid was existing pool finish to remain, patch and require the new gutter as needed. But now, and we had an alternate for removing and replacing the complete finish, which was not accepted. We wanted to make sure you had all this information in real time while the pool is drained, know how much it would cost, and also know what are the long-term benefits for the pool. So that would be.
How does this impact the start of the season?
It's good that you had asked that, because that was
Is it really?
very first question that Superintendent Duncan asked about that. If we are, I'll let Victor, if he wants to jump in on it, but when we had the conversation about the timing, and we asked the pool expert, the WTI, he explained where this has been done. The time from installation is just weeks, so that wouldn't be a factor. Getting contractors lined up, getting everything, the pricing in order, getting you to agreement, that's gonna, but the actual work itself is not extensive and not taking a long time. It might be the process to get there.
So as far as the square situation, is that part of the plan to get that back into square, or to act like?
Yeah, they're gonna make it as square as possible with the gutter and everything, and they'll probably do the best they can. It probably won't be perfectly square in the corners, and that's probably not the critical situation here. It's the actual length of each lane in the pool.
Right.
So they'll do the best they can with that existing pool. To respond to your question about schedule, WTI has contacted a couple of vendors about the PVC membrane. This is something they can build on site. They bring the materials in and they build it. It's not something that has to be manufactured, long lead item, in a shop someplace. So we did talk to one vendor and they said they probably can get that done within a few weeks' time and schedule. How that actually works into the schedule, we don't know yet. I also don't know what vendor the general contractor plans on using. He gave me 2 vendors to select from, and if he has another one, he can go with them as well. I know there's 3 companies that do that.
Within the Indianapolis market, so like close by.
Yeah. But yeah, they have local representation, and if ever needed to contact.
We're all squirming because we really are concerned about whether we can get it done in time for pool. And I don't want you to leave tonight thinking it's a guarantee to be ready for pool season. I would rather we be working on a plan B and then to do the very best we can to get the material, get a new plan for the revision. But I think we're in a situation where we may have to look at a plan B. But we're doing everything we can to expedite it.
Daryl, I have a question for you on that since you were a coach. How long do they practice before they have their first meet?
You have to get 10 practices in before you.
And what have we typically gotten in before a first meet? More than 10? Have we?
No, it's right around 10
It's
to
right
12. Yeah. And you can only count 1 practice per day. So I mean, if you practice twice, it still only counts as 1.
And so, and I'm assuming Andrea's already got the schedule. Would that be accurate?
He's saying they've lowered it to 8 at Hangman is. I haven't seen that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And I'm assuming our swim schedule is already set?
It is, I'm sure.
Right.
I think the worst that you're going to have to do is the first couple weeks you could have to go there instead of them coming here.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah.
All
My
right, thank
question is, if the liner we have now, if we put one in it just like it, it'll last 10 to 15 years. But the one that's in there has lasted 55, I think.
There was a replacement in 2004.
Well, that's still 21 years that it's
Yeah.
needed before we did this, so.
Yeah, in 2004, there was an update to the liner. WTI called the contractor that did that work at that time to learn more about what was behind the work that they did.
What's the expectancy on the gel liner if we did that, or gel coat, whatever?
The gel coat, the more expensive, do you know what the timeline is for that as far as like the warranty?
The warranty is probably equivalent to the membrane warranty, but I don't know timeline for actually doing it. It's a lot more labor intensive because you'd have to patch and repair the existing fiberglass, and the gel coat will cover that, but you can see the old fiberglass and the new fiberglass, and it's very spotty. It probably doesn't have the appearance that might be expected.
And there's a difference between, as Darryl mentioned, warranty and life expectancy. So warranty means it's covered up to that certain point. Life expectancy is a little bit longer. And I wanted to bring up Skillman David, who is overseeing the projects, usually starts and ends each meeting with that D-Day of reminder about the pool, when it needs to be ready. So that is on the forefront of his mind.
We talk about it often, yeah. So the first date of swimming season last year, I don't have this year's dates, would have been October the 28th with first contest November the 11th. That gives you some context. But honestly, we'd had conversation before we even knew this was going to be a problem about that date being of concern, and that was going to be tough to make it anyway, because of some delays with the gutter and different things that have come along. And another piece I need to throw out there too is that obviously that's more money, right? We know that. But you're always hopeful that when you have these oopsies or these things come up that you didn't know, these unanticipated expenses, that you're going to have owner contingency, which is dollars that are built into the project cost that you can use as the owner to pay for, right? Unfortunately, we believe this expense is going to be larger than what we have in that owner contingency to pay for, which means that we may have to come back, possibly even on August the 12th, just like we did with Frazee, and ask for permission to spend more money. That is money that we'd have to spend, most likely out of cash. Randy can talk more to that, but just know, and I'll be in communication with you if that needs to happen. I did meet with Ice Miller last week, had a good conversation about what that looks like. And we may have to come back and say, hey, we need to spend a little more money on the project. So I think the project threshold was like 6.1 to begin with because of our net AV increase. We could move that needle to like 6.4-ish, 6.4 and a half, something like that. So just know that's coming. If we just need a price, we need to get that number back and be able to find a plan of action. I don't know, Mike, I don't know that, I think what Dustin was asking was that life expectancy piece. Is there an ROI that exists where it makes more sense to do the more expensive finish because it's going to last us longer? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that makes sense, but when you say more expensive, what happens is you're basically removing the existing concrete wall, and you're not just paying for a more expensive finish, but you're doing more repair to the existing concrete. That could be very possible.
Gotcha. So this is the only or the best option in terms of that not occurring.
We believe it is.
Cost, everything else associated. Which
But will
says,
all costs be brought to us, each option?
Right.
So pricing for that,
Each
to be able to have that comparison, as he's working with the contractors, I'm pretty sure we have the dimensions, it would be easy to bring forward that information as well, so we can request that.
As I understood it, what was originally ordered was not what arrived. Is that accurate?
you're talking about the gutters?
No, I'm talking about the liner. Wasn't it supposed to be a different material and we got something that wasn't the material?
No, it was anticipated to be a certain material and it ended up being fiberglass in terms of
Right,
the way that
okay,
it was
so that was,
constructed.
so had we gotten what we thought, would we would have a pool that was out of square? I mean, it would have fit in,
Right.
maybe?
And there's something else too.
I mean, that's water under the bridge because we
Right.
didn't get that, but I just was curious.
David is working on, you see the base bid, so what was in there was existing pool finish to remain, repairs and miscellaneous things that needed to happen as far as like once they had the pool drained. Now that is drained and they're not doing that work, David's also working with the contractors to see if there is a small money back that's work they're not doing that would go towards the work that they would be doing for the liner. So he didn't make any promises, but that's part of his conversation he's going through, is trying to recoup some of that with they're not doing the repairs now, but there's more work that would be happening.
Okay,
So that's all in play.
yeah, thank you.
But to your point, Sasha, we will make sure that we can get that higher, longer term to make sure that you have a price comparison. Might make you feel comfortable about what you decide on because you know what the other option costs are.
But it sounds like if that differential is more than the cost of the liner itself or somewhere in that range, I mean, the truth is after 15 years, you could come in and replace this liner with a like liner, correct?
Right.
draining the pool, that's a process, but at the same time, yeah. We'll just have to look at that and find out what that RI looks like. And
One of the questions Superintendent Duncan and I asked in the meeting, because it was the collective group from the decision based on all their angles of why they think this is the best recommendation for the pool. We asked if there's something close by that Superintendent Duncan and I could go swim out and see what that liner looks like, and they mentioned that the town pool has that same liner, if you want to frame a reference.
Well, I thought you were gonna say you guys were gonna go swim that.
We offered that, but I would have to get lessons, and that would be embarrassing as a adult.
I wanna make sure we have all our lifeguards.
Yeah, that's right, everyone, absolutely. All hands on deck.
Cast season usually starts much earlier though, right?
It's gonna put a,
Yeah.
it's gonna move them back a lot, really. So luckily, middle school is moved to fall, I mean, spring.
Well, winter, late winter, yeah.
Oh,
So middle school's not gonna hurt us like when we swam.
right.
And so it's backed up, so you don't
All
have
right.
the club.
But, yeah, good job.
And I think the club is going to Centerville right now to work out anyway.
Okay.
I think Steve is taking them up there because I don't know if you guys are aware, but Darren did take a new position coaching them. And he is at Manchester College now.
Really?
Oh, that's
So
great.
he and
Good
I
for
talked,
him.
and they called him, the athletic director called and talked, and we had a good conversation, and he's up there now.
wow.
Wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard
If you
that.
want to
Thank you.
try out the pool on Monday nights, there's a yoga class in the pool.
That's probably more my style.
Well, yeah,
It might have floated.
down went.
There is a
Chris,
show.
they do the doggy lay down up there, so we can do it.
That sounds like a good entry point
Oh,
for me.
that would be,
They give away floaties as
We get
well.
goats and stuff, but.
Monday nights is church.
goats in the pool.
Thank
Small
you.
donkeys.
All right, let's transition to Eastview Elementary. You guys have seen this. This was original facility assessments for Eastview, and then also what was completed at Frazee currently. And the programming that we had established for the Eastview is what you see here, and this is basically all the pieces to the puzzle. What does it look like when you put the puzzle together? Mike, you have seen this part, and this is what we talked about last time, is we had proposed to do the new addition to the south on this property for a number of reasons. And I think it was mentioned in the meeting about looking at what would it look like if you went off to the west. And so Mike explored that, created some estimating documentation, provided it with Skillman, so we have some number of comparisons on both. Anything you want to say about this one that they originally saw before we jump into the new one?
I don't know if everybody understands the impact of this layout as far as there's an addition, but there's a lot of site work done on this here. Not only is there a parking lot, but we also have to contend with stormwater management on this option. We understand that there are no storm lines in the streets. We also understand, and I could be wrong, but I haven't heard anybody tell me otherwise, that there is a combined storm sanitary system on this property. And if we do anything, we really can't add storm water into the sanitary system. So we will have to include some stormwater strategies with this new site design.
But the electric should be cheaper, the water lines should be cheaper and everything like that, right? Because you're not running them as far.
So this is a floor plan of what it would look like. Again, no different from what you saw last month when we brought this forward, of understanding of where, this isn't the final destination of each of these classrooms. So we don't want people picking out classrooms and want that one. It's more of a placeholder, make sure we have all the pieces in there. And also it helps us look at capacity. So if you add this, you move that program, what additional capacity do you get at Eastview for the long term as far as classroom space? Victor, do you mind explaining a little bit about the conceptual estimate for option one? This will be the first time they've seen this.
I would like to, and for the educators in the room, we like to show our math when we come up with our project costs. So there's really sort of three major components. The way we look at it is the renovations of the building, everything we're doing interior of the building, which the board has seen us. We came up with some estimates for renovating, if you will, benchmarked off of Frazee for all the elementaries, and then we focused on Eastview. That interior renovations, that scope of work, what we call it, the extent of the renovations, has really not changed very little from those. So that $6.2 million number is consistent between the two options and is consistent with what we've showed you before. What's new for us today is the building addition. We have the four classroom addition and all the site work that it takes to build that addition, including the playgrounds related to that, an additional playground specifically for the life skills program. Also, as Mike pointed out, was a new parking area and the related site work. And when I say related site work, dealing with the drainage that is required to add that parking lot. Basically, you can't send any more water off the site than goes off now. Well, grass absorbs a lot of water. Water shoots off of asphalt. So you have to build in an infrastructure to address that storm. And so we're making a lot of assumptions based on experience, but we believe that parking lot will cost nearly $1 million, bricks and mortar hard costs. So those three numbers add up to roughly $10.2 million, what we call a direct construction cost. So if I bid it tomorrow, that's our prediction of what that would cost. However, we're not bidding it tomorrow. We're going to bid it, if the board approves this, probably 12 months from now. And so we need to anticipate the cost then. The other thing is that this is very preliminary information. So we want to position you so that you make sure that those bids come in under your budget. We also have kind of a crazy market going on, and we don't know where tariffs are going and a lot of other variables. So between things that we don't know yet to design and market conditions, we put another $1 million, or 10% on top of that number, to protect this budget and make sure that once the board approves it, we don't have to come back for more dollars. So that gives us an adjusted construction cost of 11.2. We are projecting new furniture for Eastview for both all the existing classrooms as well as the 4 new classrooms and the support spaces for that. So we've highlighted that, and then we've also shown what we call soft costs, which that would pay for all the design fees, oversight fees, printing, testing, all the loose, if you will, numbers. And that comes up with we think this is about a $14.5 million budget. We've worked very hard to bring it in under that, but you are obligated to set the worst case scenario, and so therefore that's what we're trying to do. Is we believe this will give you the project as envisioned for about $14.5 million.
I appreciate your team breaking it up like that, like pieces, almost like a shopping list if they want to do these things, but also save something for later that would be the future plan if you were to do that down the road. So let's jump into option 2. Any questions about option 1? So you guys have worked with Mike before. You give Mike a story problem and Mike starts sketching and starts to see what this would look like, and what we asked him to do was explore this on the west end, and I'm going to have him walk through it and then we can kind of share what we gathered from it, and then we'll look at the estimate for option 2.
Thanks, Chris. I wasn't here the last board meeting, but I understand the question came up, what if you put the addition to the east side of the building, west side of the building. So real quick, we did a study, and this study was also helped Victor and his team to provide some costs, which he'll come back up and talk to you about here shortly. In this diagram here, the classroom addition for life skills is located on the west side of the existing cafeteria. 4 large classrooms, and just like before with restrooms, there's also a support spaces that go with life skills in this area. This also is near the existing kitchen and cafeteria, so you got to be careful about future expansion to the cafeteria and or kitchen, so you have to keep that in consideration as well. But this shows how that could happen if you were to put the addition on this end of the building. It happens to be that the grade on this end of the building from the edge of the pavement, it drops down very quick, right? So when you put an addition over there, you have to bring in a lot of dirt, a lot of fill, and that gets really expensive. So here, this plan takes consideration all the grading and earthwork that would have to happen just for the addition to be on this end of the building. And also, you have some playgrounds over there, so those would have to be relocated, so there's some cost for that. There's also a storage building, a masonry storage building. You probably would have to relocate that, whether it's a metal building or some other kind of structure. You'd have to find a new home for that as well. So it does impact considerably more than the first option you saw, and you're probably going to see that it does cost more money than the first option. This does everything the other option did that we talked about. It's just a different solution. It still addresses all the stormwater management strategies. The new parking area is option 1 did. Any questions on this one?
So we originally talked about putting a room underneath of those new classrooms, just pouring them and just pouring a wall so you could use storage underneath of them. Did we not figure that?
It would be considerably more money to do something like that, to put a lower level, like.
Well, I mean, you already have the ground dug out, so you're
Yeah.
pouring walls and you slap it across the top. I mean,
Yeah, it could be considerably more to do
so they
something.
didn't price it that way.
No,
Walls there, I mean,
no.
cement block, should there not be cement block already up to the,
No, you'd have to put new foundations, and the building would be built out west of where it is now, requires more grade out there.
Could you fill in where the life skills playground now is currently? Like,
Fill in
that's pretty,
what?
like from the cafeteria wall out west, like it's still paved area right there in playground. That is, I mean, a substantial amount of feet without the drop off yet, like without dirt work, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking, Daryl?
yeah, I thought we could do that, and put the
Yeah,
block
without
wall
the brick.
underneath it, because it's going to.
Yeah, don't forget, you also have to allow enough ground around the building for first responder access. So whether it's a fire truck or first responder, you can't just have the grade drop off and not be able to access that part of the building. So you would have to regrade that to allow for access to that part of the building.
I just think we got more room for expansion if we go that way, and I don't know, I mean, I guess I don't understand it. Maybe you guys don't too, but I mean, I don't understand why we can't make that storage when it's gonna be a wall anyway. I mean, just pretty much, I mean, we gotta build something to hold the floor up, right?
You slab on grade.
but you're gonna spend all the money to bring the grade up. What's gonna be your price difference by the time you bring in all the dirt, you compact it to grade versus just pouring a wall and just pouring a slab across the top? I mean, they make decking, I don't know why we couldn't deck it, like that doesn't, for as far as price difference, I don't understand how much the difference would be, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I think if we're just looking at the difference in cost between that building, a separate building, and the basement, we could do an analysis on that. One of the things to keep in mind, that this building, if you go to the next slide, this building is, I think, 1,200 square feet bigger than the other addition. The same amount of square footage, same amount of classroom space, but it's taking 1,200 square feet more to make it work on this side of the building than it is on the other side, because it's a less efficient.
You can see the
addition.
extended corridor that you have to do to give all those classrooms access to that, which makes the square footage more. When, they were talking about the constructability of it and all that, and went through the pricing, I personally, having a program like this in my elementary school, exactly like this program, and it was about 4 classrooms, I was a little apprehensive on it being on such a main corridor of the building that every child travels through. And I think about the students that I had in my program, easily distractible, all of those factors, and then you have a majority of the school going down that corridor, whether it's to access the playground, whether it's come to related arts, go to the cafeteria. I like the first location because of that being separate from the main action that's happening in the rest of the building. That's just my opinion, not from a constructibility standpoint.
That's more from the educator
Yes.
standpoint and
I
noise.
mean, I can give you my educator standpoint on it. If you build life skills on at that south end of the building, like option 1, you're right next to instructional classrooms. And currently, they are on the west end of the building. where they're close to the cafeteria, they're close to their playground, they're close to their specials, where they don't have to travel as much. And I mean, they do have some significant needs where they don't need to be walking far lengths to go to the bathroom or to get to the cafeteria, especially if they're melting down and they're collapsing on the floor. Like, it is difficult for them. So I do like option 2, just because of.
I mean, I get what you did in option 2, but that wasn't what we talked about last month.
That's not what
We talked about down there on that end, but we didn't talk about, that's not what we talked about.
Okay.
Didn't we
I
talk
must
about
have
on the other
misunderstood.
side? We flipped
Right,
it.
yeah, explain what you mean by that. Like what, I can't remember exactly what we had.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff was more down where it was,
I thought it was on the right side.
yes, it was further down this way.
Were you at that meeting, Kate, when we talked about that? The different design?
No, I mean,
Was it last
I met
meeting?
with Daryl,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
met with maintenance, Todd.
It was just the conversation we had in the meeting
It was
last
their
night.
meeting, you know, we talked about feasibility of our life skill students and
Right.
just for their peace of mind and just to have some of their, like, it's more private, you know, like, from my standpoint of being.
And that was the main thing that we talked about, was
Yes.
the fact that those kids are constantly traveling.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about a separate corridor. They're in that corridor going, if they're over here,
They're
going to all those
Yeah.
specials and cafeteria and everything all day long.
Right, and so we're having to start like putting them in wagons, you
Yes.
know, and like, and then they want to stay in the wagon all the time, then it causes behaviors, you know, so just trying to think of new options to get them to where they need to go. So-
Was there an option to move those classrooms on the right side of that hallway there?
So
Like,
move it to the north?
yeah, I think we talked about moving the, I can't read, but.
Yeah, I think we need option 3.
The soft play, that area, yeah,
And so,
I
like,
thought
I-
it was supposed,
I'm with, yes.
Yes.
yeah.
I have created a new playground for our school, like we fundraised the heck out of fundraising and built life skills equipped playground equipment for our
Oh,
life
so
skills
you
and
don't want
for our
us
whole
to
students,
look at
you know,
that?
so, and I worry too, like that new parking lot is cutting into that new playground area that we have created and spent so much money on.
Can
And
that play area be, is it equipment or is it,
it's equipment.
so it could be moved? Maybe.
It just got put in, so, it costs a lot of money, you know,
Yeah.
like I saved a lot of chickens, I made my husband haul it, you know, just to be
Seems
a
like
little
a
bit
big
cheaper.
save,
but
yeah,
like,
save
yes.
some money, it's fine. It's fine.
To make it, you know, I spoke with the life skills teachers, you know, we talked about some of the equipment that they would like to see for their life skills students, and we have special adaptive swings now for them, you know, because the life skills playground that is currently on the west end of the building is, you know, starting to deteriorate, it's getting old, it's got some age to it, you know, so we're trying to make sure that all that playground equipment that you're seeing, that you said we might have to repurpose, it can disappear if it needs to disappear because of the age, because we have, like I said, done a lot of fundraisers to make new equipment for our students.
If I can respond to where this addition,
Yeah.
it makes more sense to be where it is in this diagram here, because if you're gonna have a parking lot on the other side, I think you already observed that, there's no room for an addition on that end
Right.
with the parking lot there. So if it's the board's understanding that the life skills addition should be in this location, close to the cafeteria, this is probably the only solution I see
Okay.
in this area.
Jeremy, did we not have a drawing of last meeting?
I think you stood up and just pointed.
Yeah, you-
I don't really remember a
I
drawing.
mean, it was pretty much dead at the end of that hallway, right?
It was.
Yeah,
It was.
Because you were
Maybe it
talking,
wasn't to the right, maybe it.
Yeah, it was
It was
right
center,
at the end of the
something like that.
Center was
because
all
we
the way
were
for basketball.
talking about
Yes.
Right,
the
right.
drop,
I thought there was a
the
drawing.
basic thing was the drop off was.
The drop-off for
Was
this.
gonna be the issue.
Well, drop off like car rider?
No,
No,
the
no, no,
drop
the
off,
ground.
right.
The hill.
You can see where they kind of drew in where you can see that grade start to shift
Carol
dramatically.
just texted it to you.
And I think that addition that they were trying to make was to avoid, the farther you go into where those lines are, the more expensive it's gonna be. which is why you see the design. in
So
this
Kate,
way.
those 3 play areas that have hard, maybe soft, I can't read what they all say. Are those all for your life skills kiddos?
I'm not sure,
Oh.
like,
Is that drawing not accurate for what you have at
I
your
haven't
building?
been in a lot of the conversations for the plan of this, you know, but
No,
I
I'm just
do
looking at
know
that drawing. Are those current playground locations? That's what I'm asking.
soft play, hard play, but yes, our playground almost extends to those kindergarten doors there on the north
Okay.
end of the building.
Okay.
There's swings there. We have taken out the garden that has gained us some space, but, you know, there's fencing all around it. And there's significant grade differences for that parking lot right there, like where you're talking, like it is significant. If you go out there and you walk it, you're walking up a hill, you know,
Yeah.
to get there, so.
I just didn't know if those,
You're talking about
if
dirt
this was
work.
first
Dirt
a
work.
design or those were already something that was there, because they're, you know, a couple of them are in red, so I didn't know if those are new ideas.
I'm not sure if that's new
Okay.
ideas or if that's.
Okay.
So playgrounds that were, whenever Mike is doing something that's on a playground, he wants to replace the playground.
Right.
So it is more of a recommendation for what you would have covered, that's what, and we had a conversation about if you were to consolidate playgrounds, because you do have spread out playgrounds, it's a lot of.
Yes, yeah,
if
and
you
that was
were to-
my goal, is to give them a really nice substantial playground, nice private area for the kids, so they can play that's out of the area of parking lots, is what we've had
Right.
prior, so like, to kind of get rid of
Yes.
that south end playground. because
Okay,
it is
didn't
dangerous
we
for the
want
kids.
the new addition to be centered right
Yes.
here?
That's what we looked at.
So the life skills had the one hallway, they were near the cafeteria, specials, they had their own wing, right?
That was kind of what we had discussed.
Yeah, we had discussed that, but what I'm hearing from you, Mike, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that because of that grade, it's just not,
That's not going to be feasible to do a centered.
We don't have a survey of the property. We have very limited information, okay? So there is
How were we able
certainly,
to do that?
there's a lot of unknowns about this property, including the grades, utilities. We believe that the grade does drop off a little bit just because we were out there and looked at it. The grades do start to drop out, and the addition coming off into that corridor could be more difficult or more of a challenge to regrade the property in that area. Plus, like I said, still have first responder access around the building, which you must have.
Mike, this is kind of what last time we talked about, is that one right there.
Okay. We can, if you want to send that to us, we can.
Yeah,
take
that's
a peek
what
at
you
it.
see up there.
That's
Yeah,
not,
it's-
No,
Yeah.
no, it's farther.
it's farther,
If you follow
you want
the,
it centered.
if you follow the hallway now by the cafeteria, we wanted 2
It's gonna send.
and 2 in the hallway right down the middle. Like, I understand it drops off, but what are you planning on doing with the parking lot? Are you planning on bringing the grade up or taking it down?
Because you're also saying that because of that extra corridor, that was a lot of expense.
Yeah.
So if we put that there, that doesn't, that you don't have that corridor. You have the same square footage that you had on the other end.
It may not be as big as this one, but it's bigger than the one to the south. And so if that's the solution you want, I'm just cautioning you, it's going to be more expensive. And if that's the board's desire to do that.
I think we just want all of the cost options.
Right, maybe get it surveyed so
Well,
that we know what's out there.
And also too, from Kate's perspective, if you're gonna have those special needs kids and they have to, you want them in a confined area, that you don't want them to have to walk all the way through a building. So if you can put their new area close to the specials, the
I
cafeteria.
mean, that's my goal, is kids first, and that is, I mean.
Well,
that's really
and
what they need.
that just absolutely even if it were a little more expensive to
Correct.
do in the longer term.
Because
That's what's
option
best.
one is more like we've taken them and we've put
Just
them as far away as
spread
we
them
can
away.
possibly get them from everything they need.
Right,
So they're gonna have to go all the way through the building to,
and that cuts down structural, educational time, because
Right.
moving a child like that takes longer to get through the hallway.
so instead of being a few feet away to go to the cafeteria, they have to go through
Yes.
the entire building. And, you know, cost and benefit, if this is gonna be the better thing for our kids,
then that's the best.
What does it take to survey this? Just also for Dustin's comment about, and Daryl, about putting the storage underneath. I'm guessing that's a survey, that you would glean information from a survey to help you with that decision too, or not necessarily?
We really need more detailed information. And
Yeah.
in order to do that, we would need to have a survey and understand how to design.
Something like that.
I think it's a lot of money to spend without a survey and knowing what we're dealing with.
Right.
Eventually we have to do a survey
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
when we land on. One thing, from what I'm hearing, looking at an option 3, we know the square footage breakdown. So if we're able to accomplish the same program that you saw earlier and you've seen in these 2 options, and looking at it more centered on that west end, and then seeing what the cost option for that would be,
If it
it
was
might
centered
help
more.
you again.
Yeah, yes.
If Daryl, you send that to us and we can take a deeper look at
Sure.
that. And then Victor, do you mind explaining through cost option 2 and why it is a little bit different? I mean, we kind of
So-
covered it.
Real quick before you do that, so wouldn't we have more room to expand even by doing the second option later down the road versus the first option? I mean, where we're building the second option, we could always still go out farther, and we could always go out west if we needed to. The one where it's on the south end of the
It's
building,
as far as you can go.
we
As far as
can't
you
go
can
much
go.
farther
Yeah,
anywhere,
right.
unless we box something in, correct?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're looking down the road, and I sent it to both of you two, and I'll give you guys a number.
Victor, if I can, just really quickly, if I can just say a few things that I think are really, really important. Number one is that we're on a timeline, right? And I don't want to make a hasty decision, but I think we all have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to close on a bond by the end of the calendar year, right? And the schedule at this point in time is that we have our first project hearing essentially August the 5th, the second one on August the 12th. Then there are very scripted, tight timelines through the end of the year for us to be able to close and go to market for a bond by the end of December, which we have to do, right? Because that debt is dropping from the middle school. I don't say that to say that we shouldn't be asking questions, because we should, and we should be making sure we're doing the right thing and making sure we're finding the best option. But my caution would be that we have to be really careful that we don't trust the people that we hired to do the work. And what I hear is that the team feels like option 1 is the best option, and they gave us some good reasons for that. We have to be careful not to open up too many cans of worms, right? Because it delays that process. So if they have to go back and they have to draw up another design, we're going to have another special session at some point in time between now and August the 5th for them to come back and show that to us again. That's okay. I just want to make sure everyone knows that, right? And if we come back to that and then we're like, oh man, what about this and that? And we have to go back to the drawing board again. I'm just saying we have to be really careful that ball doesn't start to roll too fast, or else we're going to get ourselves in a position where our timeline just gets blown up, right? So just a caution.
We have to fill that debt space.
We do, right? I mean, that's the
If we don't,
reality.
somebody else is going to get it, and we're not going to
So
have that.
what is the timeline of getting the option that some of us agree on?
You mean as far as getting a new conceptual drawing and a new?
And
And getting some estimates that
Yes,
look very
like-
similar.
just like an option.
Would that really kick us off a timeline?
No, because if you were to do a board work session prior to August 5th, so that you have time to roll up your sleeves, we've all done that before in the past.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just roll our
Yeah, we
sleeves,
have.
get through it, and we can talk through these options so that we can lead with a consensus. That timeline for us, I can't speak on the survey though. I don't know how long a survey takes of the.
Survey will not fall within the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to try to do some temporary surveying of some kind.
I think the best thing to do is look at this most recent option survey and just send it to us, because I had not seen that before. Let me do another diagram like you just saw here. We have visited the site, we have some idea where the grades and what's going on with utilities, and we'll just revisit with Skillman on that budget, and then come back and visit with him.
Randy, can I ask you, Randy, you have more experience with this than I do, having been in the game a little longer. If we get to the point, how flexible can we be with the actual design after we've gone to market, right? So once we say, here's what we believe in our best efforts that the project isn't going to exceed this dollar amount. Here's the scope of the project, which is an addition, a parking lot, whatever it happens to be. And then down the road, whether that's on one side of the building or another, as long as it falls within that dollar amount. Talk to me about that.
I'm gonna go, I think as long as we give a worst case scenario, whatever that means, whether the worst case scenario is 14 million, 15 million, or 25 million, as long as we give the worst case scenario that the board approves and fits within our financing and all of that, we could go forward, because what they're showing right now, they will agree, this is a long way from a bid document. You know, so whatever we decide, I mean, if the board just tonight said, I want option one, let's go with that, we're still looking at a number of months down the road before you get to the bid documents. So from a legal perspective, as long as we're setting the upside parameter, anything less, I mean, let's say for whatever reason, the board says, we can afford, we want to do, we bring to the public, we want to do again, I'm going to go way out there, a $25 million project. And then as we look at it, all of a sudden somebody goes, you know, we could do this for $7 million and get what we want here, and that saves more money for later. We can always
change
go
that.
down.
Yeah.
What we cannot do is say, this is a $10 million project, we come back and they come back with something that all of a sudden bids in at $18 million, because if you end up over that, then that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
So there's still some wiggle room there.
There's some wiggle room there, and again, these guys deal with it every day, I deal with it occasionally, and that is, no matter how well they are doing it based on current market conditions, by the time this actually comes out to bid, the only thing I will guarantee you, the numbers they put up there are not exactly right. It's going to be a little bit, hopefully it's going to be a little bit lower. There's always that possibility. It could be, you know, they don't want to look bad and it comes in $1 million over. Everybody has mud on their face then. So the object's to be high anyway. And the same way with the board and the law, as long as we're high, we can come in under budget and go, good for us and good for our taxpayers. But we can't change it later on and all of a sudden it's a lot higher.
We're not afraid of the additional work of option 3. We will bring that to you. You guys give us a due date and we'll have the information ready to process. And at that time, we'll also have pool liner information, I imagine too, so we could probably handle both in the same setting.
So I don't, and I'd have to talk to our friends at Ice Miller about the timeline. I don't know that we can push those project hearings off considerably, if at all, from the 5th and the 12th, which means that if we're going to come back with more information for an option 3, that's going to happen sometime between now and that date on the 5th, just FYI. So we'll have to find a date that works.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's fair.
So we'll work with Chris and the team and the folks there and find a date that will work for everybody to come back and have that discussion again for an option 3, and we'll look at numbers and see what that looks like and go from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. That is.
Okay.
And this is, yes, just so you guys know, this is normal. Because think about it, if you didn't look at option 1, 2, and 3, and a year down the road, they're breaking ground, and if we didn't look at 3 and someone's like, why didn't you do this instead of that?
Very true.
Well, it was $3 million more, so we chose to do this, but we have a plan for that. We want to make sure that you have all of that from the ground up so that you are ready for those conversations and you feel confident in moving forward.
So to that point, if there are anything else, if there's any other options or things, now's the, things will come up, like it will happen, right? But if you have something from a conceptual design perspective that's big, like now's the time to put it on the table. Because I don't know if we can come back for around 4.
Will not build a second story. That's not a good option.
But she was worried about the playground. Is there a way to cut off that top section since it was 2 layers of the parking lot and move the top layer to like the front of the building, kind of attached to what's already there almost, or on the other side?
I think what Mike will do is when he looks at where that sweet spot is for that option 3, he also looks at what are we impacting when you do that, because you'll see it overlaid on the plan to see, okay, how much does it cover of that? Do we still have the fence? Do we still have those type of things? So yeah, we'll see that as part of it.
I think overall, we just want Kate's, it's Kate's building and it's her kids. and we want to do something that is going to be effective for, logistically for those special needs kids. If it costs us a little more, well, it costs us a little bit more.
Can I add one thing now that I just want to plant the seed that you'll need to think about when I looked at Daryl's option, and it is, I know it's going to be centered on the back there, but no matter what, we're going to have some impact to the natural lights coming into the cafeteria. So as you're building a corridor and you're building classrooms up there, you are impacting those windows that are there. Just want to throw that out there.
I have a question. It sounds like you like the idea of a storage area underneath the addition.
Yeah.
How much? How big? The entire floor?
I would
Half
say,
the floor?
I'd say the whole thing, and what the price would be versus bringing in compaction dirt to just pour you some walls and slab over, what the difference would be.
Sure. No,
Yeah,
I
that seems like a
want to
lot.
make sure
Yeah.
I knew what you wanted.
That's it. And Dustin's great question. And we talked about that a little bit last time, and we also talked about the worry about like, what could you put in there? Like, what can you store?
Because currently you're using a storage shed or something that's in crummy condition or just
It's
a.
actually pretty.
No, it's not, it's just not big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you may not have to if you put the four, if you double, you may not need to move them.
And there are certain things that you cannot
I
put
don't know if it's big
underneath,
enough.
in a storage facility underneath
Yeah,
classrooms.
we have to look at that as far as code.
Yeah, there's a fire.
So, okay.
You guys are great.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for taking the time
Thank you
with
so
us.
much.
We appreciate you so much.
You know.
All right, I would like a motion to approve the agenda as
I
submitted.
so move.
I'll second.
And a second. All those in favor? Opposed? All those in favor. Public comments. I see no public comments. Consent agenda. Approval of the minutes from regular business meeting of June 8th, 2025, and executive meeting on June 25th, 2025. A personnel report, recommendations for employment, background, retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, etc., and approval of the June 2025 claims number 71112 to 71341.
Are we asking for a motion?
Yes, we're asking for a motion.
I'll approve it.
Have a motion, and a second?
Second.
Second.
Can I add a discussion before
Yes,
you?
absolutely.
Just I want to point out a couple things on the revised personnel report.
Yes.
And hopefully, because I don't have all of the information on the first one, but hopefully Jeremy will address the first one I'm going to mention. I do want, the ones that are highlighted, we have in front of us. Jim Summers, who is the recommendation for Chief Operations Officer, replacing me very, very soon. We've also added Laura Griffin as a fifth grade teacher, Jennifer Logan as a classified staff, Stephen McHugh as a permanent sub. The rest of them are resignations, so I don't need to highlight those, except for there's one that maybe the board's gonna go, what's this guy? And that is the very last one, Dennis Perkins.
Who's that guy?
He has had a job change, and as a result, for 1 year, he made some big bucks as the assistant track coach because he did it volunteer for so long. But I guess his raise or his, promotion was so massive. I say that with jest. But that's the reason why Dennis he's resigning. He really wants to still continue to work with our program, but he just isn't going to be able to provide the time with the job change at Reed.
Oh, okay, so he's not just going back to
He's not,
volunteer?
no.
Okay.
He's not going back to full-time volunteer because he doesn't have the time, but
Okay.
he's hopefully going to help out.
Okay,
So I just want to highlight a couple of those things.
all right.
And hopefully, if the board approves the consent agenda, maybe Jeremy will want to stick to the replacement.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. After that discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? All right.
Yeah, so if I can, I want to introduce to you Jim Summers. Jim is here with his wife. Jim, I'm going to do my best to give a bio, although he is such a storied and an impressive career that it might be difficult to get it all, but has worked at IU East for 15 plus years, has done a multitude of things, from HR director to doing their budget, to being over food service, to being over, starting food service, actually, didn't you? Started it, yeah.
Athletics, yeah.
Being over athletics, many different things there, comes very highly recommended to us. I haven't told Jim this, but I had people that had worked at IU East for decades who said, Jeremy, he is my favorite employee I've ever worked with at IU East. And so I feel honored to have the opportunity to bring him on board as part of the family. And you know, we obviously had a little bit of curveball thrown at us. Super excited for Andy Stover and his new venture as superintendent of Westdale Community Schools. Obviously disappointing for us, but and I'll call it the 11th hour with Randy's retirement or pending retirement. But to find somebody of Jim's quality is really a huge win for us and our corporation. And excited to see the work that he does to help us continue to move forward for what's best for kids. And so just want to say, hey, we're glad you're here, and I don't know if you have anything to say or not, if I captured it, but.
I'm ready to go, so yeah, I know Randy's ready to leave, so. I'm excited, and thank you for the opportunity, and I'm excited to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We're
Glad
excited
to
for
have
you
you.
to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So the plan at this point in time is, and we haven't necessarily settled completely on a date because he's got people that need him where he's at. He's in the controller's office right now at IU Bloomington. Wants to make sure that they're taken care of course. But we still want him to have some time of overlap with Randy. And so we're working on that date right now as far as when that start date will be. But hopeful to get him in the office here in the next few weeks and get him started. So.
I say, and to let you know, I am flexible from the standpoint that I'm looking at maybe extending a day or two or three or a week or whatever necessary to make the transition smooth. I am not going to be here in, November trying to make this transition. but I also really want it to go smooth for all involved.
Right.
So,
You're gonna be reasonable, but not.
there you go.
As you know, we are entering budget season. We started looking at budget in the month of July, and Randy will start having conversations with the board in August about what budget season is going to look like and what that schedule looks like. And that's as a superintendent, my most important thing for that transition to work well. And I can pick up some pieces with HR and those types of things, but that transition between Randy and Jim with the budget and the finance piece is huge. And so I'm sure they'll do a great job of that. Jim's done a lot with the budget at IU East. And a larger budget than we have there, so.
It's always.
Can we at the this might overlap with budget, I'm not quite sure, Randy, but with our loss of property tax dollars this year, other funding that we're getting some news about here and there, some of those funds that are questionable whether we're gonna get, I think there was, I don't know, it was title monies or whatever, you sent us an email highlighting the areas that may be affected. Adult ed notwithstanding, because that's a separate piece, but the pieces that involve our day-to-day operations. Can you show us that, like the difference of, and where we're going to see that impact? I know it's it's mainly our operations fund, right? That's going to be hit. We're not getting that much.
The circuit breaker impact on
Yeah,
property
and,
tax.
right, and, I know we're not getting much, and also just comparing the slight increase we got from the state, but then other things that impact whether we really get that money. I don't know how much of that money we get. I just think I like to see it kind of side by side, so I can see where we were, how much we're losing, and how we may not know yet how we're going to move forward, but have some ideas. If you could do that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. So the plan is to have our friends at Baker Tilly here at our August board meeting.
Okay.
And what they will do is they will give you that picture. So they will say, this is where we have been, this is where you anticipate you will be based upon the changes to Senate Bill 1. I don't know that he'll necessarily get in the weeds with Title I funding and things like that. That's a different picture, but from a property tax perspective and those changes and how they're going to affect us, he will get deep into the weeds with that and give you a really good idea of what that looks like. I do have some preliminary numbers. Obviously, I put those out publicly a few times with some things that we've done and an article I wrote for the newspaper. But that picture does shift and change and such. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to do a chunked approach to Eastview is we want to know the true impact of what that's going to do to our numbers as we move forward. And the difficult conversations are going to come when we start talking about what is our tax rate going to be and how do we capture the same levy, right, to keep operations moving without raising tax rate. That's difficult. It's a difficult conversation to have. But he will go through all of that for us. They are our advisors in that way that help manage our tax rate, help manage our picture, our debt picture. And so the plan is to have them here in the month of August.
I did hear somebody through some email on the state level that the calculations the state made weren't 100% accurate, that there were some mistakes. And I'd have to look, I think it came from Chalkbeat, which is that education newsletter or something, that the state was, I don't think it's going to be any big deal. I just think there were a few errors. That's what I heard. So I'll see if I can pull
question.
that
I don't know, Leslie. Yeah,
okay. Well, we'll know more by next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would you like to introduce the guest?
This is my wife. She's a first grade teacher, so.
I've been in education for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So we're an education family here.
Yes,
So.
and our daughter's in college to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So.
Where do you teach?
Northeastern.
Okay.
And you approve, ma'am, of everything that's happened so far,
Oh, yes, yes.
You definitely approve it.
Oh, yes, yes. Happy life, happy wife. Happy wife, happy life. Either
There you go.
That's-
We're all good. He knows it.
Thank you guys. I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, action items, approval of elementary, CMS, CHS, WCC handbooks, student code of conduct, bus regulations, and ridership guidelines. Ms. Gifford.
Okay, I brought these to you for discussion last month, so this month I'm bringing you these for approval so that we can get them to the printers.
I make that motion that we approve the elementary CMS, CHS, WCC handbook, student code of conduct, bus regulations, ridership guidelines. Thank you.
And Erica seconds that. Any other discussion about that? All right, all those in favor? Those opposed?
Thank you.
Everyone's in favor. School board policy, second reading and approval of updated policies. A275 school wellness, D275 drug-free workplace, E125 promotion, placement and retention of students, G450 advertisements, publications, and naming rights. Mr. Dunn.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So these came to you last month for first reading. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds. Just want to make sure you understand. A275 is that wellness policy that went through our wellness committee. Lots of language there that is obviously required by statute. D275 drug-free workforce. We did have some conversation about that at our last meeting, but essentially lays out what we expect of our employees and our kiddos in regards to our buildings and grounds being a drug-free place to be. E125 promotion, placement, and retention of students. This one does speak to IRE 3, and so this has been vetted by our elementary principals quite some time ago, actually. When they looked that over. And then G450, advertising, publication, and naming rights. We've had some conversation about that as well. Most of the nuts and bolts of that are in the administrative guideline that you guys have seen as well. So, any questions about those policies as presented for second reading?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Chris, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Everyone's in favor. All right. Discussion items, school board policy first reading for updated policies C275, test security provisions for statewide assessments, D125 evaluation of superintendent, D350 fitness for duties, leaves and examinations, G200 environmental health and safety issues. Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, thank you. D275 test security provisions and statewide assessments. The state of Indiana obviously requires certain things of us in order to give the standardized assessments that they asked us to give, such as I Learn, I Read 3, other assessments like that. And so we have policies and procedures that we have to follow in that regard, as far as test security training, other trainings that are required. This is a pretty umbrella policy that essentially just points to statute and says, follow the rules, right? Do the right thing, make sure we're doing that. But with an understanding too, that obviously if we don't follow those things, especially if we do so intentionally, there are ramifications for that. D125 evaluation of the superintendent. Just for the public's knowledge, we had an executive session this evening at 5 o'clock where the board did deliver my evaluation to me. And so they are required to evaluate me annually per my contract, but also per statute. And so that's here. It just basically says that my performance as a superintendent will be reviewed annually through a collaborative process. And so thank you for your feedback this evening as part of that evaluation, but that policy essentially governs that. D350, fitness for duty, leaves and examinations. You'll want to read this one. This is an interesting policy. I think Ann and Sasha would agree with that. Essentially, what do we do as a school corporation when we have an employee who is not fit to be in the job that they were hired to be in? And so that policy spells out what we can do by law and by policy in those events. I think we would all agree that if we have a bus driver who physically isn't in the shape, maybe they have a heart condition and something, a little different story there because they have to pass an annual, is that right, as far as their physical? But if you did have a concern for that, right, what do we do? Because we're not going to put somebody on the road with kids who could be a danger to children. The same thing is true if you have somebody struggling with other conditions or illnesses or whatever they happen to be, who may be in a classroom setting or working for us in any setting, operating heavy equipment for Darryl and isn't necessarily physically able to do so. And so that policy will outline what we can and cannot do with those employees. So you'll want to look at that. And so there are talk about exams and who can choose the person that or the examiner, if you will. We as a school corporation have that within our purview. And refusal to participate in an exam. What happens if we say, hey, we have concerns about your duty to perform your job responsibilities, and someone says, I'm not going to go take an exam, right? So this policy does give you the opportunity to, or us the opportunity as administrators to take disciplinary action as we need to. The hope would be we'd never be in this situation, but again, our ultimate goal is to make sure we keep our kids safe, right? And so that above all else is most important. So this gives us that opportunity if we feel like we do have an employee who is not fit to do the job. G200, environmental health and safety issues, just basically says that we have some regulations. We have to have an indoor air quality coordinator. This is one of those titles that we have to have somebody that takes. Darryl is that person for us. We added that title to
Any other title.
to the website the other day. Thank you, Kelly, for doing that. Darryl asked for the CEO title. I told him he could have that, but
Doesn't he get one of those little signs like you have on
he
your
needs that.
desk?
Yes, I have a lot of those signs. Thank you, Randy.
I asked Randy to take it with it, he said no. He said he appreciated me in other ways.
Yeah, but we do recognize that indoor air quality is very important, especially when you have aging buildings, and we want to make sure that we take care of our people, and so we do need, that's an important part of what we do, because if you do have a concern about indoor air quality, there are steps to that, right? And so we want to make sure that Darryl knows what those steps are, and that we respond appropriately if we have someone that comes to us and says, hey, I'm worried about the quality of our air, right? So that policy is in place to protect our employees, and to make sure that we're in line with the statute. So those are the policies for first reading, D275, D125, D350, and G200 that we have reviewed. Just an FYI, we had several, and I sent these to you, that I asked questions and said, hey, I think there were 3 different policies.
Yeah.
That I had asked some questions. I got those answers back this afternoon. I have not had a chance to take a look at them at this point. So those will be probably in the next month. But remember, once we get on the pattern of we've got everything to where we want it to be, right, as far as policy, we'll then get a fall update every year and then a spring update based upon legislative changes. We did just receive our spring update. So not only do we have this backlog of policies that we just got that we didn't get all the way through, we also have a spring update. That spring update, honestly, is our next has to be our next priority, because these a lot of these laws went into effect July 1, right? Yeah. So
Nice of him to tell us.
yeah, we just got it, right? So we will be bringing you a group of spring update policies based upon the recent legislative changes. Hopefully in the month of August, we're meeting again the 14th, I think.
We're meeting
Next Tuesday, next Monday.
Next Monday.
So-
For a policy.
Okay.
Yeah, to go through
Okay,
those.
sorry.
And so that will put us on pause a little bit with the entirety of the update, right? But we have to get to those pressing ones. So-
Well, then also, you sent us the things, we had questions about the ones that are not on the list for discussion.
Correct.
The ones that we discussed on the 25th of June. And the answers were, I think CCH did answer our questions in a way that we can tweak the language to live with.
Good. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Well, the questions that we raised, they really did a good job of addressing
Good.
as far as mays and shoulds and
Good.
that.
Awesome. Okay, that's what I've got. Thank you.
All right. Public comments. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, and/or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. I see no comments. Report items, ISBA report.
Well, we're coming up on the state conference, September 15th and 16th. You all probably received an email that said early bird registration was up today. I don't really fault anybody. I do think Haley sent that email out a little while ago, but it's been a busy last month and we haven't gotten to it. Hopefully you all sign up, whoever is interested. Generally, there's a delegate assembly at the state conference. I have been the delegate most years. Ann was the delegate one year. It's on Monday, September 15th at 12 p.m. Erica, you're probably going to have to be there because the nominating committee is there and the legislative committee is there. But if somebody else wants to be a delegate, you're welcome to be that. It's probably as exciting as a construction meeting. It's a little more exciting, it's a little longer, but you do get information. I think once you're signed up as a delegate, you get the information of all the foundational statements and the legislative priorities, which are the main body of the work at the delegate assembly. That's what
You really want to go.
that's what you vote on. And somebody from the legislative committee presents those foundational statements and the legislative priorities, and they do some introductions of people and that sort of thing. This year it's being held at noon on Monday. It's normally held at 8 in the morning. But if anybody has a strong desire, I don't know if you received the email or if I received it. But let me know and I'll make sure that you're the delegate. If nobody's interested, I'll go ahead and do it. I might have to be there anyway.
Leslie, can you just explain what that means?
What a delegate is?
To be a delegate within that context.
So every school board has an opportunity to have one person vote on the foundational statements, which are, I think they're 12, and those are like abiding principles that the Indiana School Board Association says are necessary for schools to function, which of course includes funding. And so the foundational statements are exactly that. It's the foundation of what's important to, for our organization, like make sure our members are aware of things that are happening, provide resources. There are set statements that outline those foundational statements. You can find those on the ISBA website. The legislative priorities are priorities for legislation going forward. So in past years, one of the legislative priorities was keep school board nonpartisan. Other legislative priorities would be about TIF, about having representation. Typically, school board has not been allowed to be a voting member on a TIF board. That's always the legislative priority, is to try to get the legislature to allow the school board member to be a voting member. So that's what the legislative priorities are. Those change slightly every year based on, there probably won't be one this year on school board partisanship since that bill passed. So the foundational statements generally stay the same, and the legislative committee does that. Also, the nominating committee will probably present, because I think they present the Lauren Burt Outstanding Board Award, the regional, each region now is having an Outstanding Board Award. And I think there might be an outstanding educator award, I'm not sure, but the nominating committee, have you guys met yet?
No.
Will they
It's on the
announce their
24th.
this thing?
Well, they won't, they'll just have them stand. They sit at, there's 2 tables in the front, circle tables, and all the rest are just tables like this in the back. And they'll just say, we'll have everybody from the nominating committee, and they stand up. We get to clap. They do that for both the committees, so she won't be named individually, I don't think, but.
But you remember.
It's a nice, you know, you're part of the process. I got to be part of the delegate assembly for Indiana School Board Association at the National School Board Conference. And that was an incredible opportunity to be there with all the other states. And they do the same thing. Theirs is much longer, theirs is like 4 hours, but they state all their priorities. We don't do resolutions, but at national level, there's resolutions for new action. So that's basically what that is. So
Thank you, I appreciate
people
that.
let me know if anybody wants to be a delegate, and I'll turn your name in. And state conference, I guess that'll be Kelly, that'll be sending us that information if she knows that.
She probably doesn't
Well,
know
Cindy,
that
Cindy always did it in the past. I don't know if that, excuse me, if that's something that Jeremy, you're going to
Yep.
take over, if Kelly's going to do. It's a great conference. You'll have to see, usually we get invited to vendor dinners, which are always nice. And we'll see if those invitations come, and then you make your decision, you go Sunday night or you go Monday. And usually the group stays at least one night. Did you stay overnight Sunday night last year or no?
Yeah,
You did? You both
Yeah,
came Sunday night, 'cause there
I
was no
stayed
dinner
Sun-
that night.
there was no dinner, which was fine, but I stayed Sunday because we had to be there to get your first session.
Right, at like 8 in the morning.
At like 8 in the morning, and the breakout sessions, for those people that have not been, are, well, you went to the National School Board Convention, and so you experienced a lot of those. And what is really interesting about the Indiana ones is these are people in our own neighborhood that are dealing with the same kinds of things that we are, and how they are doing it, just like we got from the national kinds of things. So it's much more focused in the sense that it's more Indiana focused rather than the entire country. But
And the
they're-
second
they're
night is
ex-
always the dinner at,
Oh, yeah.
The meat
Brazilian,
place.
the
The
Brazilian
meat
steakhouse,
place.
yes. Oh, my.
It's good.
yeah.
All right. Superintendent's discussion groups reports. All right. Principal director's reports.
I was going to say that freshman family night is July 23rd from 6 to 8.
I just do a shout out to those folks that are working behind the scenes, represented by these 2 guys over here. I mean, our schools are closed, there's no students in there, but we got tech people in there, custodians, maintenance crew coming in every single day, trying to make sure that we're ready come game day. And they don't get a lot of the fanfare, but they do excellent work. And I just want to thank Terry and Daryl for their crews and our own custodial crew. I'm sure that's the same case in all the other schools. They're just really working hard in the building. Our building looks great. I'm sure the other ones do. Appreciate all the work that they're doing, even though we're not in school.
Thank you for that, Brian, I appreciate that. I ran across David Way yesterday at Frazee because I was going to check out construction work. He was sweating from head to toe, had been in the closet all day, and showed me the beautiful rack that, like a work of art. And he had worked all day to put, was he changing out something technology related?
We brought real estate in there
Yeah.
with the considerable PA system.
Yeah, but a great example of just that work that's happening. Yeah, and I'm just so thankful. We have great people. Thank you, Brian.
Director of Operations report.
Real simple. If you get the fund report in front of you, things continue to go along. My fear is not in 2025 here, it's what as we look at the legislative thing going into 2026. The biggest thing I can say between now and the August board meeting, that even though it's not official, we need as many kids coming into our school. The biggest thing that's going to affect the education fund is simply total enrollment. If we drop, wherever we end up, if we drop 20 kids, we're in good shape. If we drop 100 kids, oh my goodness. And so some of this stuff we do with the budget coming up here, starting in August and more in September, October, really looks at honing it in, Again, you'll hear this probably every board meeting, at least from me, and Jim will probably continue on. And that is realize as we do the budget, the board level is really giving the school district the authority to spend these upper limits, realizing that we have to have the appropriation and the ability to spend, and then we really get hit by what's the real dollars as it progresses through through the fall with enrollment and all of the final things on funding and what happens at the state that comes out. So that's all I have.
All right, Assistant Superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm gonna pass this out. And as I'm passing this out, I just want to let you know that we did conclude summer school. We are going to have Mrs. Phillips and a couple of teachers present in August. We can't present that data because it's embargoed until the end of July.
Why do they do that?
They do that because schools have an opportunity to look at the data and determine if they feel like there are errors in the data, and then they can appeal that, and so they keep that process open so that the numbers don't consistently change. And then once that appeal process is closed, then those numbers are considered what you're, yeah. So we will be bringing that, but we had a great amount of success in terms of growth. We just focused on second grade and third grade. Our third grade performance on iRead was wonderful, and I just kudos to those teachers. They just put in the time, the effort, and they just did everything they could, and I'm excited to have them share next month on their achievement. What I passed out to you is the proposal for SLC, Spartan Learning Center. We built that several years ago, kind of with building it in the air. It has transitioned and it's grown and it's moved in a lot of different directions over the last couple of years. And not bad directions, it's just the needs of our kids continue to change. The expectations on our kids continue to change. So we have to be willing to make those changes and making sure that we're giving them every opportunity to be successful. So next year, you will see in the table that we are targeting a project-based learning group. I don't know if any of you have gone to Winchester, but they have a project-based learning, industry-based learning, and it really gives kids an opportunity to use their skill set in a work-based environment, helps the industry in our community work side by side with our kids, helps us to know what our kids need to have and be able to do by the time they leave us. We also still have that group of kiddos that need that credit recovery. It is dwindling, and so that's a testament to our teachers at the high school and all the hard work they're doing, as well as SLC. And then we have the final group, which is just your traditional SLC. Some kids just perform better in a smaller environment with more one-on-one directed instruction. So we don't want to take that away because we have seen so much success. I'd say our largest success has been with SLC has been those 8th graders coming into the middle school. We used to call them bridge kids, and we would retain them, but we would give them an opportunity to earn high school credits. Well, when we opened SLC, we found those kids were so successful that we didn't need to retain them because they caught back up. So that is probably one of, I feel like, and Kelly's in the back, she was the director for a while. I feel like that's probably one of our biggest success is that we have kind of bridged that gap where we typically have lost a lot of those at-risk kids from 8th to 9th. We have created that bridge and we're seeing more success in that transition. So we don't want to take that completely away, but we also want to push those kids back into as much direct instruction and socialization as they can handle and still be successful. So we'll continue to give you more details about the changes, but I just feel like this chart gives you a good idea of who gets to go, what groups are being targeted, and what our objective for each of those groups are. So just a little summary of that. And then finally, as you can see, Cindy is not sitting here with us, and I know she does not like any kind of public recognition, and she's giving me the stink eye. I won't look at her. But I just want to thank her for all of her years of service to Fayette County Schools. Not just here at Central Office, she was at Fayette Central, she was the health assistant. I think you've held a lot of positions within the school, right? health assistant, instructional assistant, secretary to elementary, and then you've been out here since '06. She left once and was gracious enough to come back and support us when I needed to be out for health reasons for my son, and I'll never forget her for that. And I just want to wish her the best. So just want her to get the recognition that she deserves. Happy retirement.
Can I ask, do we know New Teacher Academy?
Yes, New Teacher Academy is, it's the Tuesday and Wednesday of the last week of July. So is that the 28th, 29th?
Okay.
I don't have a, do you have your calendar?
Do you
29th.
anticipate, I know principals are probably doing this again.
We are having, we have found.
Just let us know if
We will probably do a breakfast.
Okay.
Stephanie McCann and Kirsten Phillips are working with teachers to do the New Teacher Academy. So they are in the process, but it is Tuesday and Wednesday of Fair Week.
Okay.
So we'll start 29th and 30th, and we will start with a breakfast, and we'll probably invite you guys to just, come and introduce yourselves and put a face with names.
We did that
Yeah, we've done that.
Yeah, we did that last year at Daniel Girls.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, so just really quickly, I want to give an update on title funding. The update essentially is we don't know a lot yet. Other than the fact,
That's enough.
other than the fact that we do know that Indiana essentially is set to lose roughly $295 million in federal funding. That federal funding does help migrant education, English language acquisition, some niche areas like that. We do receive money for Title II that does pay the salaries of 2 of our interventionists. And we also have one counselor, restorative facilitator that Title IV pays for. So we do have positions that are paid for out of those title funds, as well as other things that we use that money for. We're hopeful still that could change and that we could receive that funding, but it's there, right? So to date, this summer, and this could change tomorrow, it could change in a week. We are saving 6.5 positions by attrition. We've talked a lot about how when variables change, you can't keep operating the same way, right? One of those is the fact that we've lost kids over the course of the last decade. And so we're hopeful we can turn that tide, right? To Randy's point earlier, I believe strongly in the value of kids being in school with a teacher. I've been in a lot of school districts. I will put our teachers and the education our kids receive up against anybody. And I believe strongly in the work that happens in our classrooms. And so a lot of trust there. But until we get to the first day of school and we know what that looks like, we don't have a clear picture of what that funding picture looks like, because education fund, remember, is only funded by the number of kids, essentially, the number of kids you have in those seats, right? And so, yeah, the title funding is concerning. It is. There are other things that are funding streams that are concerning as well. So we had a conversation today. We met with Mr. Dungan and Pasha from our adult education program. Essentially, the word right now is that adult education funding from the federal government is being cut. Most of that money that funds adult ed comes from the federal government. Now, I will say we did receive a little bit of good news this afternoon after we met, and I've not had a chance to, we haven't even talked about it yet, and had a chance to digest it. But we did get another notice that essentially said we are going to get some money for adult ed, but much less than we received before. So could adult education exist in some form next year? Yeah, absolutely. Could it look a lot different? Yeah, it could. And so, we essentially are the fiscal agent for adult education, where the money comes to us and moves out. We don't have a lot of strong governance of the programming, right? And what happens there. But we are certainly invested, and we're invested because it's good for kids and it's good for people. And I think it's been a game changer for many people in our community, and so we hate to lose that. At the same time, funding is funding, right? And so, if that funding is not there, then we have to make hard decisions about what that looks like. Because the reality of it is, we are in the business of educating children primarily pre-K through 12, right? And we can't necessarily hurt the pre-K to 12 programming to pick up the adult ed programming, right? That just becomes a difficult conversation for us to have. So we should know more soon. There is a webinar tomorrow with the Department of Workforce Development that we've got some folks that are going to sit in on and report back as far as what that may look like. But it's interesting. We're still waiting on $60,000+ in back pay, right? Because it pays in the rear, the adult ed program, that we haven't even recouped, right? Let alone the next budget year, right? That has been promised, but then they had to go, oh, we promised it, I know, but we're going to pull that back. So we're waiting on that money to come through first, right? Because at this point in time, we're in the red as far as adult ed for this past year. So yeah, I'm telling you a lot, but I just want to lay the groundwork to say that there's a chance that adult education could look a lot different if it even exists in this form that we have right now. Do want to give Rachel and the team a shout out. I got a number today: 14,629 meals distributed in the month of June to our families. That is incredible. Again, 14,629. It's a lot of meals to prepare, a lot of meals to push out there, and so job well done to those guys, and they do a tremendous job. And thankful that we're able to do that. What a great thing that is for our families, that we're able to provide those breakfast and lunch essentially every day of the week, right? So we're pushing those things out on Mondays and on Fridays and feeding our kids on 7 days a week.
Do you know, did they update you with, when we asked about no refrigerators?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've not heard anything about that. Randy, have you heard anything about refrigeration being required or not required for those meals?
She said not sure, but they were going to look into it.
I don't know. I've not heard.
I haven't heard from him, no.
Yeah, and we've received no complaints about lack of ability to refrigerate if there are refrigeration required meals. So I don't know. Yeah. I can check with you.
We are so fortunate because there are other communities who have lost the funding for that, and essentially other entities have had to go in and try to provide food for these kids, but it was a program that's just no longer being funded, and they just said you're just not going to get the money, and other entities have had to go in and provide, and it's been very tough.
Yeah.
The city of Indianapolis lost theirs.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah. Just a quick update on the Frazee project. I know they touched on the pool projects. I won't touch on that this evening, but Frazee is moving forward. We have floors in our bathroom. That's not dirt. Yeah, I sent you guys that picture that day. I walked in that day. I was like, wow, there's nothing left. And so still anticipated to be finished in time for the school year to start without interruption. Question right now is registration. What's that going to look like within the context of that building? We kind of pushed off a decision on registration for Frazee just because we wanted to get closer to the end date to see what that building looked like, to see if we could do it there in some form. We're going to have to make that decision here in the next week in terms of what that's going to look like, and can we hold it within the context of maybe the third grade wing that's already been renovated. Can we do it there? Or do we have to move that off-site somewhere else? And so we'll put that information out. We'll make sure we communicate that to folks. But that is moving forward. If you ever want to visit, just let me know. We'll take you over and you guys can take a look at what's going on there. The rooms that are done look fantastic. And the additional casework we added, I think I told you that before, it just looks fantastic as well. So just for the public, your school board is working really hard right now and has a lot of meetings coming up, so kudos to you guys. But we are meeting Thursday for an executive session at Woodland Bible Church. It's a retreat, essentially, is why we're off-site. And then we'll be doing strategic planning, essentially from 10 o'clock through 3 o'clock with STAR, who's our partner that we chose. That second session is going to be recorded. Thank you again. Our folks from TV3 are just incredible. And so they were willing to shift and be there and have that recording. I was going to try to do it on my own. I guess that's my maybe naive and thinking I do more than I can, but because I didn't want to bother them with it. But they're just incredible. So, and then of course we have that preliminary determination hearing number 1 on August the 5th, and then the second on August the 12th. Those 2 meetings are going to be on the calendar, notice put out. But it sounds like we may even have a meeting that's going to be between those 2. And so I will work on scheduling that. I'm going to have to work with Chris to make sure he has time to deliver what you've asked him to deliver, which is, I think, is great. Please don't take my comments earlier as anything other than, hey, we just need to make sure we understand, like, the timeline is the timeline, right? So we've still got to stay within those parameters, while making sure we do our due diligence to ask the questions we need to ask. So kudos to you guys for doing that. I just want to make sure we understand those deadlines. So, okay. I think that's all I have for you, unless you have questions for me. So. Okay.
Did Daryl get any information? I know that we put out something earlier where the kid gonna come to school for the transportation type of situation. What kind of response have you had back from that?
Not a lot, really. I was gone all last week, so I haven't heard much from anybody, but I mean, we'll do what we need to do to adjust.
Well, that was just something that we had put out there to help give us a general idea of how many kids that we were gonna have in the school corporation and in each school district.
Oh, the intent to return.
Yeah, the intent to return situation.
Yeah, we had a really good showing with that, and it really has benefited these guys. And I will say this, Daryl and I are meeting next week to talk about routing and to talk about, there will be a new app for parents that will be pushed out a little closer to registration.
Stop Finder.
It's called Stop Finder, which essentially is going to allow parents to see where their kids are on their routes and what time they anticipate those children to be dropped off, what time the bus will be there, those types of things. That'll be really nice. But again, all of that is because of the work that Greg, that Daryl, that Terry and his team have done this summer, that our principals and our secretaries did to gain information on the front end. Like, all of that has been their hard work. And so kudos to them for that. We will start with some information being pushed out soon about what that looks like for parents and how to get involved in that and make sure they have the app and everything else. And within the next few weeks, that's what we're meeting about next week. So, Daryl, you have anything to add there?
Yeah, it will tell them a lot of information. They'll have to go in and sign up, but we'll be able to go bus by bus. Like if we got a kid, one bus that's late, it got held up, something happened, we can send it only to that bus and the parents. I mean, it's going to be a big help for us, you know. And I think it's going to make parents feel better about things. I know when Eric and I had, you know, a kid, her kid, it was kind of a mix-up, and I mean, we couldn't tell what it was. I mean, you know, so I mean, it's going to be a huge help to do that.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it before, just to say it again publicly, that just understand routes are changing, right? And so we've worked really hard to be more efficient with our routing, to make sure that we have buses that computers are oftentimes much better about being efficient than we are. And so the computer system has helped us, and Greg has done the work to make sure those bus routes are efficient and that we don't have people that are traveling, you know, on buses too long. But that also may mean that people's routes change, our bus drivers' routes change. Students may have different bus drivers this next year. Like, there are things that will happen that will be a byproduct of that. That may be a little uncomfortable for people at first. Change is hard. But it's a step we had to take as a school corporation as far as efficiency. So.
And Jeremy and everybody's worked with us. I mean, like, special ed is a little bit different. I'm sure nobody knows really what goes on with that. But I mean, there's literally, we're picking a kid up at 9, dropping them one off at 10, picking up at 11, going back at 12, leaving at 2. I mean, so we've kind of narrowed those windows down with Megan and Kelly and all of them. So we have kind of a time frame where we're going to pick this up and drop this off. So it's going to get better in cost savings, and Lou and Greg are working on that very hard.
I do want to really quick, before you hit the gavel, I want to add to what Kim said, and I would be remiss if I didn't add titles to Cindy, just really quickly.
Yeah.
I know Cindy has played a lot of roles, but for me, she's been school mom, counselor, all of the above for me, and transitioning to a new role in a new place with new people is really challenging sometimes. And to have someone of her quality as a human has meant the world to me. So, thank you.
For the good of the cause.
Well, our difference maker billboards are all over the place.
They
They are so cool. I love that. I think it's just wonderful for Fayette County to celebrate our staff, and I haven't seen all the look. Are there 5?
There were 10.
There are. Some are just never going in.
Saturating our community with the good news, so.
Yeah, it might be nice. Do we have someone like on the way out of town for those people to say, oh, look at all those cool
Yes,
people we're
there's
coming
one
to?
on 44, and there's one by the
Okay,
geo.
yeah.
East, west,
Yeah.
they're all over the place, yeah, they're all over the place.
So that was very exciting, and another wonderful congratulations to all of our certified and uncertified staff that were selected by their schools. That's just so cool. I know Cindy doesn't want anybody to say anything else, but she has run this building and kept all of us board members in line in more ways than not. And for all the times we don't answer her when she says, okay, what date can you come? And then she has to make personal phone calls to everybody, and we're a pain in her side.
And then she says, thank you, like you answered her the first time.
She's also just been incredibly supportive for those of us going through rough times. Absolutely. Appreciate it. And we'll miss you.
And she understands technologically challenged people that still like to do things with pencil and paper.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Leslie, difference makers, I think we do have more difference makers than were on that board, and I will tell you that Jeremy has made a heck of a difference to my bus drivers. He goes into them, he talks to them, he knows their name. They actually feel like they're a part of this school corporation. And I mean, it's every day he does it. And every day I have one of them say, hey, Jeremy's at school again today. So it's just what he does, but our bus drivers feel like it's a big accomplishment, and they feel like they've got a name in the game for him.
So when do we put him on a billboard and put 10 of those all over?
I would love to see that.
When they're
He
trying
doesn't
out
get
the
his
pool liners.
Just you.
That's right. Got you. Yep. I'm looking out for you.
As soon as I what?
As soon as you try out the new pool liner.
Oh my gosh.
It's
I'm
pretty
here
for
for
you. With
Yes.
this goggles.
Yes, with the goggles and everything, I got
Rubber
you.
duck thing.
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
I'd like to formally submit my resignation.
Chris, I think you need to hit the next order of business.
Yeah, soon.
So anyway,
All right.
thank you.
I make a motion that
We have a motion,
I second.
second. All those in favor?